Today, the Gemara at the bottom of Daf Mem Aleph Amud Beis, the last few words, Rabbi Yosi Omer Yontif. What it said in the Mishnah is that if on the first day of Sukkah someone forgot and carried out his lulav, or it's here actually, the Mishnah is right over here on Mem Aleph Amud Beis. If a person is Shabbos, so you can take the lulav on Shabbos, but you're not allowed to carry it in the Rosh Hashanah. So if someone forgot and carried the lulav in the Rosh Hashanah, so Rabbi Yosi says this is what's called ta b'dvar mitzvah. You made a mistake while you're doing a mitzvah, so therefore hoitziyei b'rishus. He's not going to be chayav a korban chatos for this because he was doing a mitzvah. Amar Abaye. So Abaye explains what exactly is the case over here, that he carried it out for the purpose of a mitzvah. Lo shanu. So this Mishnah is only said elo shelo yatzabay. If he did not do the mitzvah of lulav and esrog yet. So now he's carrying it out for the purpose to go do a mitzvah. So then I say that'll be potter because he was doing it for the purpose of a mitzvah. But if he carried it out to the Rosh Hashanah and he already did the mitzvah, let's say he's carrying it home from shul or he's carrying it after the mitzvah, so then chayiv. So now he's going to be chayiv. He's not a tov b'dvar mitzvah anymore. He did the mitzvah already. So the Gemara asks him this. Wait a minute. So what's the case here? The halacha of lulav and esrog is, what's the ikar mitzvah? Just to hold it in your hands. So the moment he picks it up to carry it out into the Rosh Hashanah, he's holding it in his hands. He did the mitzvah right then and there. So when he carries it out into the Rosh Hashanah, he's not doing it for the purpose of a mitzvah. He was yaitz already. Amar Abaye. So Abaye answers, Keshahavchai. What happened is when he picked it up, he wasn't holding the esrog the right side. He was turned over. You're not yaitz the mitzvah is the esrog is upside down. So he didn't do the mitzvah yet, and then he went to the Rosh Hashanah to bring it to wherever he was going, and then he's going to do the mitzvah. That's one scenario. Tosfos brought this concept before. I mentioned it regarding the bracha. This is in the Welt. This is the minig. How do they make the bracha? They hold the esrog upside down. They make the bracha, and then they turn it over. Because you want to make the bracha when it's in your hands, but you don't want to do the mitzvah before the bracha. So you hold the esrog upside down. Right? Right. Tosfos brought a few options. Right, I mentioned. Rava says, we could even be speaking about a case that he did not turn over the esrog. What's the case over here? He's carrying out his esrog in a box, let's say, or on a dish, or whatever it is. Like today, you go. How do you go with your lulav and esrog to shul? You don't walk with your esrog in your hands. You walk with it in a box. So he's holding the esrog in the box. He didn't do the mitzvah yet. He's going to do the mitzvah now. So the Gemara asks him this, wait a minute, but if you hold it in the box, are you not yaitz the mitzvah? But Rava is the one that said, we learned this before, lekiche al yedei dava acher, that if you take the lulav and esrog into your hands, not directly, through something else, the example before was, let's say you put a glove on your hands, or with a handkerchief, you're not holding the lulav and esrog directly, shma lekiche. That's called that you took it into your hands and you're yaitz the mitzvah. So even if you're holding the lulav and the esrog in a box, you should still have been done the mitzvah. So the Gemara answer is not the same thing. Hanemili derech kovet. What he said before is only in an honorable way, meaning you have gloves in your hand, or you have a handkerchief in your hand. So then you're taking the esrog, but for the extra protection, or you want to take it in a way that you don't want to ruin the esrog, so you put on a glove or whatever. So that's called derech kovet. So then you're yaitz the mitzvah, according to Rava. Aval derech bezayin. But if you're holding it in a box, that's what's called derech bezayin. You're embarrassing the mitzvah. You're keeping it closed in a box. The Eibusha gives you a mitzvah, and you take it in a box, and you don't take it out of the box. To do the mitzvah with the esrog in the box, that's called derech bezayin. That you're not yaitz the mitzvah that way. And that's the case over here. He was carrying it in a box, and he didn't do the mitzvah yet. So this is the concept. Now the Gemara is going to discuss the concept itself. The concept of Rabbi Yosi is ta b'dvar mitzvah. If you make a mistake with a mitzvah, there's no korban chatas for that, because you did it, so to speak, b'rishus. You were trying to do a mitzvah, so there's no korban chatas. This is a sugya actually in Shabbos. There the Gemara learns it out from Sukkah. There's a whole discussion, but over here there's also a little bit of a discussion about this. The Gemara brings a few scenarios. Let's see. Fragt the Gemara, now Amar Rav Huna, okay, it's not yet a question. The question is coming in a minute. First, the Gemara brings a statement that Rav Huna said that Rabbi Yosi would say a similar halacha of Tov Dvar Mitzvah. Oylas ha'oif shenimtzes bein agapayim. You had a bird, which is an oyla, and the halacha of an oyla is that it has to be totally burnt in the mizbeach. You don't eat any of it. it was found amongst other birds that were from the karbonis of chatos birds. And Rashi explains that usually the oif of a chatos and the oif of an oila are brought in different corners of the mizbeach. They're not brought at the same corner. But when it gets very busy in that corner of the mizbeach where the oila sa'oif is brought, so even the oila sa'oif is brought in that corner where the chatas is. It's brought in the same corner. So it's possible that you should have an oila sa'oif in that area where the chatas sa'oif is, and you make a mistake. You don't know, you think that it was a chatas. And therefore what happened? Okisava chatas sa'oifi. So this kayin thought that this bird belongs to a chatas, v'achala, and he ate the parts that you eat by a chatas. Potter. He's going to be potter for eating from the kachim, even though usually when you eat from kachim, this is me'ila. You misuse the kachim and you chayav a carbon chatas for this, or carbon asham actually, asham me'ila, and you have to pay back with a chaimish, whatever the halacha is. But over here, because this kayin thought he's doing a mitzvah, he thought it's a chatas saif, and he's doing a mitzvah to eat from the chatas saif, so this is a tabedvar mitzvah, so therefore he's potter. So the Gemara now explains, so my kamashmalam. What is this case that Rav Huna is saying, teaching me? The Tab Dvar Mitzvah Potter? That if you made a mistake thinking that you're doing a mitzvah, that you would be potter from this carbon asham over here. But Hainu Hach, isn't this the exact same point of what Rabbi Yossi said here in the Mishnah regarding a person that's carrying out the lulav? So why is Rabbi Yossi saying the same thing, repeating the same thing again here? So the Gemara answers, it's not exactly the same. Because I would think and make the following distinction. Hasam hu deta b'dvar mitzvah potter. Over here, meaning over here, regarding the lulav and the esrog, when we said that he made a mistake with a mitzvah and he's going to be potter, hainu david mitzvah. Over here, in the end, he actually goes ahead and does a mitzvah. He carried the lulav and esrog into the Rishus Rabbim, and then he brings it to wherever he's going, and he does a mitzvah with it. So in the end, he's doing a mitzvah. So there, in such a case, he would be potter. But by this case, where he ate a piece from this oilas ha'oif, which is supposed to be burnt in the mizbeach, he thought it's a chatas, and he ate it. The tab etvar mitzvah. He made a mistake thinking that it's a mitzvah. But v'lo mitzvah. In the end, he did no mitzvah. Adarab, he did something which he wasn't supposed to be doing. So in such a case, meloi. Maybe here Rabbi Yossi's concept does not apply. You don't say tab etvar mitzvah pot, because in the end, he didn't do a mitzvah at all. Kamash Malon, that's the chiddush over here that we're saying that nevertheless, Rabbi Yossi says even in this case where you didn't actually end up doing a mitzvah, you're still going to be potter. That's the chiddush here. So this is a huge chiddush actually. In the Gemara and Shabbos there's a big discussion about this. Others disagree to this idea. We're taking this concept of Tab B'Dvar mitzvah very far. You intended to do a mitzvah, but you didn't actually ever end up doing a mitzvah. Still you're going to be potter. So the Gemara now asks on this. Meisve, Rabbi Yossi asked on Meisve, the question was asked on this. Rabbi Yossi Aimer, and a Braisa Rabbi Yossi says, Hashoichet es hatamid she'einem avoka kil chasai b'Shabbos. You shechted a carbon tamid, but it wasn't fit to be brought as a carbon tamid. It turns out that this is an animal that did not go through the proper checking to see that it does not have a mum. Every carbon tamid that was brought, you had to check it for 4 days to make sure that it's fit for the carbon. So this was brought and it was not fit for the carbon bichlal. So the carbon is not good. So then you have to bring the carbon tamid over again. So chayev chatos. So Rabbi Yossi says, you chayev a chatos for shechting a carbon on Shabbos that turns out the kohen that shechted it did not know that it wasn't good for a carbon. So if it's b'sheigig, but b'sheigig he did shchita on Shabbos, so he's chayev chatos, that's one of the malachas. When v'tzarech tamid acher, you have to bring another carbon tamid. So what's the question here? This is also a case where the kohen that shechted this carbon tamid was doing it with the intention for a mitzvah. He's a tab b'dvar mitzvah. Elamai, b'payel, he didn't do any mitzvah, because the carbon wasn't fit for the tamid. So he has to do it all over again. So here we see that Rabbi Yossi holds that when you intend to do a mitzvah and you did not do the mitzvah, you can't say Torah b'dvar mitzvah. He's going to be chayiv on a carbon chatas. Amalei. So he answered him and said, no, you can't ask from this case. That's a different case. Why? Bar mino dahi. Exclude that case. That's not a question at all. Why not? We learned regarding that case. Amar Rav Shmuel bar Toi, Amar Rav Hamnuna Saba, Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Oshion, Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rav. So what did Rav say? What is that case speaking about? Kagoin shehiviyoi milishke she'enan mevokarin. This kohen brought this animal from a chamber of animals that were not checked. He knew when he's bringing the carbon that this carbon is not for the mitzvah. So therefore he's not called a toyib b'dvar mitzvah. if he's bringing it from a place that's not muvukarin, so you can't say that he was trying to do a mitzvah. He's bringing it from something he's actually, Rashi over here says, that he's karev l'mezid. If you're bringing it from that place, so you should have known that mistama over there, if it's a lishka she'ena mevukara, mistama, this animal was also not mevukar. It's possible that over there should be some animals that were checked, but if you're bringing it from a lishka that most of the animals there are not checked, so then this is not someone that's being toyib b'dvar mitzvah adarabah. The chiddush over here is that he's not even considered a mezid. He's only considered to be karev to mezid, but he looks to be more like a mezid. He knew that he's bringing an animal that wasn't checked yet. So that case is not a question on what we're speaking about. Rabbi Yossi's shitta is, that's the conclusion of the Gemara here, ta b'dvar mitzvah, you potter, whether you ended up doing a mitzvah, and even if you did not end up doing a mitzvah. Zok the Heilige Mishnah, going back to the halacha of lulav, mekabeles, isha, miyad b'no, miyad baila. A woman can take the lulav and esrog from her son or from her husband. And the chiddush over here, as the Gemara will explain, you may have thought that maybe for a isha, a lulav should be muktzah. For her, it's not a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah seishas mangrama. So if it's not a mitzvah for her, so maybe it's muktzah, like or any other plants and things that are muktzah. But nevertheless, no, she can take it. Umachzirasei l'mayim b'Shabbos, and she can put the lulav back into the water on Shabbos. So the diak over here is machzirasei. You could put it back into the water, but you can't change the water to make it fresh water. That's asar on Shabbos. But you can put it back into the water. Rabbi Yehuda says, b'Shabbos machzirin. On Shabbos, you're allowed to return the lulav back into the water. B'yantif meisifin. Yantif, if the water is already spoiled and it's not good for the lulav anymore, you can change the water. That's not allowed on Shabbos, as Rashi says, because you change the water, you're being misaken mana, you're fixing, you're improving the condition of the water for the lulav. That's an extra tircha that's not allowed on Shabbos. U'b'mayid machlifin. And on Cholamayid, not only are you allowed to add water, or to, Masifin really means just to add. Okay? So Masifin means you're adding water to freshen up the water. On Cholamayid, you can totally change the water. Cotton, hayideya linaneya, a cotton that is old enough that he knows how to shake the lulav, chayev b'lulav. He's chayev in the mitzvah of lulav. So the Gemara is going to discuss this, but just to point out, this concept of kotna yidei lenaneya proves that the shaking of the lulav is a part of the mitzvah. We had before a few times, I made this point, that even though l'chayre, the Gemara keeps on saying, and right here we had it, the Gemara says, mida'ag bei nafak bei. As soon as you pick up the lulav and esrog, you yetze the mitzvah. But nevertheless, the shaking of the lulav is not just some hiddur or some inyan of ruchais rois, it's a part of the mitzvah, it's a continuation of the mitzvah. There's two rayas to this. One raya is right at the beginning of this perek, and one is right in the last mission of the perek. Right in the beginning of the perek is where it says the shiur of the height of the lulav, that the height has to have an extra tefach for the nanuim, and if not, the lulav is puzzle. If the nanuim is just this additional thing, it's not part of the mitzvah, why is that part of the shiur of the lulav? Elamai, the shaking is part of the mitzvah. It's a continuation of the mitzvah. And then we have the raya right here in the very last Mishnah where it says that what's the shiur of a cotton to be chayiv. We'll see soon that when it comes to a cotton and mitzvahs, at what age is chinuch? When it comes to all mitzvahs, you have to look at each mitzvah accordingly. It's not one age. Every mitzvah, when he could do that mitzvah. So over here by lulav, it doesn't say when the cotton could hold the lulav in his hands. It says when he could shake it, because that's the shleimus of the mitzvah. Not only to hold it, but also to shake it. Sagt the Gemara, about Aisha? Aisha is potter for Aisha is potter because it's a mitzvah seisha as man grama. Seisha as man grama, nashma potter. If she does it, she can make a bracha according to the way we paskin. Sagt the Gemara, pshita. This halacha that a woman could take the lulav into her hands and yontif, isn't that pashit? Mao, the tamus of the answer is no. I would have thought, since a woman is not obligated in the mitzvah, so maybe she's not allowed to hold it in her hands either. Maybe it's muktzah for her. It's like holding a plant or taking something that's muktzah. Kamash Malan, that's the chiddush, that since it is a mitzvah today, true, it's not a mitzvah for her, but since it is a mitzvah today, so therefore it's considered to be a keli, it's halal, it's something that's used on Shabbos, it's not just stam like a piece of wood or whatever it is, and therefore she can also hold it in her hands.
Why is it so pshita?
Why is it pshita that she can take it in her hands? Apparently, I mean, this is svara, this concept, I mean, it's what would be the issue here? Gemara is saying, I would think it's muktzah.
Yeah,
okay. No. Sagt the Gemara, Cotton, Hayideya Lenaneya. So it said in the Mishnah, the shiur of the age of a cotton to do the mitzvahs when he knows how to shake the lulav. So here the Gemara brings a brayse that goes through many different mitzvahs. When, at what point is the cotton chayiv in the chinuch that we have to be mechanechim for the mitzvah? So Tan Rabbanon, cotton Hayideya Lenaneya, a cotton that knows how to shake the lulav, chayiv b'lulav. That's the age when he has to do the mitzvah of lulav. Lis Atef, when he's old enough to know how to put on the tzitzis, chayiv b'tzitzis. That's the age of tzitzis. So our minig is that when by the upsharnish at the age of 3. So that's when the cotton begins wearing tzitzis. It's much easier to know how to wear tzitzis than to know how to shake a lulav. Lishmai tefillin, to know how to guard, protect this tefillin properly. So Rashi says that means that he knows not to take it into the Beis HaKisei. Aviv lekech le tefillin. His father buys him tefillin. Yidei al daber, if he knows how to speak, which is even younger than 3 maybe. Aviv loimdei Torah. The father teaches him Torah, v'kriyashma, and he teaches him kriyashma. Torah maihi, when it says that the father teaches him Torah, what's the first thing of Torah you teach a child? Amar Rabam Nuneh, Torah tziva lanu Moshe meirasha kehilas Yaakov. This is the first pasuk you teach a child. So this is why when the Rebbe instituted the 12 psukim, the Rebbe started off with this pasuk of Torah tziva lanu, as the Gemara here says. And the Rebbe spoke about this barichas on different occasions. There's a sich in Chelik Daled. The Simchas Torah sich there, the Rebbe says that when you tell a child, Torah tziva lanu Moshe, what you're telling him is the entire Torah. Doesn't give any limitation. The entire Torah, including the deepest secrets of Pnimiyus HaTorah, it's all an inheritance for you. When the child begins, the first thing he has to know about Torah is, after this pasuk, he's going to be learning step by step. He'll start with Aleph Beis, then he'll learn how to read, then he'll learn Chumash, then Rashi, then Gemara. That's the seichel of Torah. He'll go step by step. But before he goes to the seichel of Torah, the foundation you have to give a child is the entire Torah, the essence of Torah. Higher than seichel is an inheritance for you, and that should be your foundation for the rest of Torah that you're going to learn al pi seichel. Sagt the Gemara weiter, Kriya Shema Maihi, when it says you teach the child Kriya Shema, what does that refer to? Pasuk Rishon. It refers to him saying the first pasuk of Kriya Shema, which is the Iker mitzvah of Kriya Shema. There's also a big discussion about this, the mitzvah min HaTorah regarding Kriya Shema. What does the mitzvah min HaTorah of Kriya Shema entail? In this Gemara it seems that just the first pasuk of Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, that's the mitzvah min HaTorah. Hayideya lishmer gufay, a cotton that knows how to protect himself in his body, that he shouldn't come in contact with tumah, he shouldn't become tameh. Oichlin al gufa, you can eat foods that you want it to be tired, even if it touched his body. You can rely that he's old enough that he's protecting his body, that it shouldn't be tameh. Oichlin al gufa taris, he's eaten, even if it touched his body, you can be sure that it's still tahir. Lishmer is yadav, but then there's an additional gzeira. Besides the body, chacham wa geyser, that the hands of a person are a sheni l'tameh. So you have to know how to protect your hands specifically, to wash your hands properly. So when the child knows how to wash his hands, then oichlin al yadav taris. Then you can eat taris even that he touched with his hands. Hayideya lishoel, a child that's old enough that you're able to ask him about what happened. If he was in a place and you ask him, did you touch anything that's tameh? He has the awareness to know whether he did or didn't. So then the halacha will be b'reshus hayachid sveikei tameh. If it was a place of a doubt whether there's a tumah that was touched or not, so if it's at a private place, at a reshus hayachid, and the suffix the halacha is tameh, but reshus harabim, but if it's in a reshus harabim sveikei toir, then the suffix of a tumah is going to be toir. This is learned out from a saita. Rashi brings it here. Rashi doesn't bring the whole in. The Gemara Saita, Rashi is Mitzayim B'Kitzer. The Gemara Saita, that's a scenario. Saita is a scenario of Safik Tumah. And the halacha by Saita is that we treat her as she's Tameh. She has to go and drink from the waters. And it's only because a Saita is in a private place, right? And what's the scenario by a Saita? She's a woman and she has the das that we could ask her about what happened. She might tell us, she might not tell us, but the point is that she has das. So from there we learn out this is Gzeiris HaKasav. Anytime you have Safik Tumah, if it's in Reshus HaYachid, we treat it as Tameh. If it's in Reshus HaRabim, we treat it as Tahir. But it's only in a case where you have a person that's there that you could ask him. That you could ask him if it's if he knows, if there's someone that has that awareness. The next halacha, Hayideya Lifreis Kapov. A child that's old enough, we're talking about a child that's a kayin, that's old enough to duchen, to do birchas kayinim, to pick up his hands and do birchas kayinim. So then, cholkin loy truma bebeis agranis. You can give him the truma in the field or by the threshing floor, openly in public. You can give him the truma. So Rashi explains that This Kayin, he's a child. He might be old enough that he has the awareness to be careful not to make the truma tameh. But giving a Kayin, which is a child, truma, publicly in the Beis Hagranis, people are going to see and people are going to say, why are you giving this child truma? He's so young, he's going to make it tameh. So it's sort of a b'zayin for the truma. But if it's a child that everybody sees him in shul, that he knows how to duchen, how to bench birchas kayanim properly, so then people won't say that. People will know that he knows already how to bench birchas kayanim, he knows how to take the truma properly, he knows the halachas of a kayin. So then you can give it to him in public. Otherwise, Rashi says, if you want to give this child a truma, you're going to have to send it to him privately to his house. Huh? The truma?
No, the king himself, he gives a king. He should be a god.
No, he doesn't have to be a gadol. When you give the truma, no. Hayedeya lishchait. Another halacha regarding a child. As soon as he knows how to shecht. Eichlin mishchitasai, you're allowed to eat from his shchita, and Rashi here says that what the chiddush over here is, even if he doesn't know the halachas of shchita, as long as he has a good hand and a good knife and he knows how to physically do the shchita, you can eat from his shchita. Rav Huna, but Rav Huna adds and explains, v'husha god loimed al gabav. That's only if there's a gadol that's there, that's watching to make sure that he does the shchita properly. Rashi says, without shihiyah, without drisa, that he doesn't stop in the middle of cutting, he doesn't press down the knife, he cuts properly. So you have to have someone that's making sure that he does the shchita properly. Obviously we don't rely on this today. Yachel, another halacha about a cotton. Yachel lechel kazayis dogon. If the child is old enough that he can eat a kazayis of grain. So we're talking about a baby when he starts eating grain. Then marchikin mitzay asay umimei raglov. So then there's a foul odor from the tsoya, from the meraglayim. So the waste that comes out of the body creates a bad arba amis. You have to go away 4 amis in order to be able to say a bracha, as Rashi says, or kriya shema, or to daven. So that there's the halacha, if there's that bad smell, you have to go away. But it's only from that age when the child is eating grain. Before that, it doesn't have that kind of a smell. Rav Chisda explains, that's only if he eats this kazayis of grain in the period of kedei achilas pras. As long as it takes to eat a half a loaf of bread, there's different opinions how long this might be. 3 minutes, or 6 minutes, or 9 minutes. Point is, if you can eat a very little grain, it's not going to create that bad smell. But if you can eat it b'chdei achilas pras, then there's the smell, and you have to go away if you want to say kriya shema. Now, this halacha of kedei achilas pras does not apply by a gadol. If you have an adult, if for whatever reason he's not feeling well and he's eating grain, he eats bread, but he can't eat so much in kedei achilas pras in that short period of time, it doesn't matter. Still, the waste that comes out of his body has the same bad smell. The chsiv, it says, Yosef das, Yosef machiv. The more awareness you have, the more pain you have. That's the simple taish of the pasuk. But here the Gemara is darshaning this, that a person that's an adult, you have more das, so over there, what comes out of his body has the smell, and you have to go away from it if you want to say kriya shema tefillah. The next halacha regarding a cotton, yochel lechel kazayis tzli, a cotton that can eat the kazayis of tzli, of roasted meat, sheichten olav pesach. You can shecht for him and include him in the count of the group for the Korban Pesach. Shenemar ishlefi ochloi. You include the people in the Korban Pesach, the people that are eating. And if someone that can't eat, you can't include him. If you can eat a kazayis, you can include him. Rabbi Yehuda says, Ad sheyachel levarer achile. You can include a child, I think this is even younger, a child that can see what is food. Keitzad, how is this? Neisen leitzroir. A child that if you give him a pebble, v'zarka, he throws it away. He knows it's not food. Egois, you give him a walnut, v'noitla, and he takes it to eat. That's a child that could differentiate between food and something that's not food. He's old enough that could be included in the Korban Pesach. Hadron Allah lulav agazol. This is the conclusion of the 3rd Perek of Masechta Sukkah. Sagt der Heilige Mishnah, Lulav va'arave, the halacha of the mitzvah of Lulav, the Dal Minim, and then the arava, which the Gemara will explain later. The arava is a separate inyan, the arava that they brought in the Beis HaMikdash, they went around the Mizbeach with it. Shisha v'shiva. Sometimes you do this 6 days of the Yontif Sukkot, and sometimes 7 days. And the Mishnah itself will explain here. Ha-halal v'asimcha, the mitzvah of saying halal on Sukkot, and the mitzvah of simcha, which refers to the simcha of the shalmei simcha that you have to bring on the Yom Tif, and when the Beis HaMikdash was standing, the simcha of Yom Tif was the carbon that you brought, and you eat that meat. So Shmaina, that's 8 days of Yontif. It can be brought any of the days. Halal, you say all 8 days of Yontif, including Shmini Atzeres. You say full Halal on Sukkot, and the carbon Simcha could be brought any of the 8 days. Nisach HaMayim, the mitzvah of Nisach HaMayim, that they poured water on the Mizbeach on Sukkot Shiva, was on all 7 days of the Yontif of Sukkot. HaChalil, the flute that they had there for the Simchas Beis HaSheyeva that they used, so that's Chamisha V'Shisha. Sometimes it was 5 days, and sometimes it was 6 days. So of course it depends if Shabbos fell out on the first day of Sukkot. So then you have Shabbos and Yontif on the same day. So the rest of the 6 days are Chol HaMoed, and you had the flute for 6 days. If Shabbos does not fall out in Yontif, so then it's only 5 days, excluding Shabbos and the Yontif. So the Mishnah explains, Lulav Shiva Keitzad, the Lulav, when is it 7 days? Yontif, Harishon, Shulchak, Shachaliyas, B'Shabbos. If the first day of Yontif falls out on Shabbos, so then Lulav Shiva. So then in the Beis HaMikdash, the Lulav would be taken all 7 days. The first day, if Shabbos falls out on the first day on Yontif, it pushes off Shabbos. B'Shar Kol HaYamim. But if Shabbos falls out on any of the other days of Sukkot, Shisha. Then you don't push off Shabbos, and you only take the Lulav for 6 days. Arava Shiva Keitzad. When is the Arava, the mitzvah of Arava by the Mizbeach, all 7 days? Yom HaShvi Shel Arava Shachaliyas B'Shabbos. If the 7th day of Sukkot, Hoshana Rabbah, if that falls out on Shabbos, so then Arava Shiva. That pushes off Shabbos. You fulfill the mitzvah of Arava even on Shabbos, on Hoshana Rabbah. Shar Kol HaYamim, Shabbos that falls out any of the other days of Sukkot, Shisha. Then it does not push off Shabbos, so then the mitzvah of Arava will only be 6 days.
Even the first day.
Yeah, correct, even the first day. Mitzvahs lulav keitzad. So now, how was the mitzvah of lulav done in the Beis HaMikdash? And this is speaking about when even the Shabbos. I mean, Rashal erases this, but it's speaking about on Shabbos. So how was the mitzvah of lulav done in the Beis HaMikdash? Yontif, Harishon, Shulchak, Shachaliyas b'Shabbos. So the first day of Yontif, if it fell out on Shabbos, so Melichen es lulaveim laharabayis. They would bring the lulav to the harabayis before Shabbos. V'achazanin mekablim mehem, and they had the chazanin, which means the gabbai. They had a bunch of gabbayim in the Beis HaMikdash, and they would receive these lulavim from everybody. And manichin, v'soidrin oysan al gabi yitztabeh, and they would set it up. They would put it down on benches for people to come tomorrow to get their daled minim to do the mitzvah. V'azakeinim, the older people that could not go there in that place where everyone's going to come to try to get their lulav. Manichin es shalahem belishka. They put their lulav and esrog in a certain chamber, so it'll be easier for them to get it. And then they would teach everybody that brought their lulav and esrog that they should say, Kol mi shemagia lulavi liyadai. Whoever will get my lulav into his hands, harei oloi b'matana. I give it them as a gift. In case you don't get your lulav, so you don't want that you shouldn't be yaitz to the mitzvah, and the other person that gets your lulav shouldn't be yaitz to the mitzvah. The lulav has to be your lulav. L'machar, the next day, mashkimin, they would get up early, uban, and they would come to the shul. V'achazanim zorkin neisam lefnein. There was such a commotion, people trying to find their lulav and esrog. The gabayim would just start throwing the lulavim to them. Here, take a lulav. They would throw it. Ve'imachatven, and they would grab the lulavim umakin nishas chaveirei. And they were hitting one another. Each one wanted to get his lulav or the best lulav and so on. It was a very bad situation. Okay, shiro bezdin shabali de sakana. So bezdin saw what happened, that they come to such a kind of a danger. This reminds me of the, remember we had the Mishnah in Yuma that speaks about the Kainim running up the ramp to do the Aveda, and they were fighting, they were pushing each other off, and one killed another one. Hiskinu, so here it's the same thing. Hiskinu, shiyehei, kol echad ve'echad neitel bebeisai. That when it falls out in Shabbos, the first day, you do the mitzvah of lulav in your house, so they shouldn't come to this danger. Okay.